I am a buyer this morning. Well, not exactly this morning. I'm transferring some money around, but I'll be a buyer as soon as the money is in position to use. And I will explain why as we go through this morning's analysis. The earnings report yesterday could have been better, but I'll tell you why I think it was the way it was as we progress through this. The NASDAQ is down, Tesla is down, but there was a huge positive analysis from George Giannarikis at Canaccord Genuity. Say all that fast. Holy mackerel. They're predicting $10 in earnings in 2025, only $10 in earnings. But think about it, at $10 in earnings in 2025, what should the stock be trading for now? You do the math. Question, did Elon talk the stock down on purpose again? Or was he just giving an honest analysis? Well, we'll talk about all of that. This is Randy Kirk. If you like the morning news, the way that we run this thing every Monday through Friday, please hit like, please hit subscribe. You want to hit notify. I've got the full lineup. I've got them all. Got Scott Walter later today talking about Optimus. That was the biggest news of the earnings call. Nobody's reported. Well, not nobody, but almost nobody's reporting it. You want to hear what Scott and I talk about coming up probably around 11 o'clock California time later today. You're going to want to hear from again, Larry Goldberg and Herbert Ong. And no, Herbert's not coming back. Brian Wang is coming back. He's got a major breakthrough idea that you're going to want to hear about. I loved it. The minute he told me, I was like, oh my gosh, you got to come on the channel and talk about it. Anyway, these are all coming up over the next couple of few days. And more that I'm still working on getting some folks in. Brian White, he'll be on as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and look. George Giannarikis at Canaccord Genuity. I'm going to repeat that till I get it right. He called Tesla a sustainability behemoth and actually mentioned Optimus, one of the few who mentioned Optimus from the call. But he was also pretty excited about what? The thing that everybody else put as the headline, the idea that there are other OEMs, at least one other OEM already in conversations with Tesla to purchase the rights for full self-driving. He has a buy rating. He's got I think it's only at 283 or something like that, but still a buy. But again, the $10 for 2025, I think that's an extremely low number since we will probably be at something like 4 this year. So, of course, that'd be 2.5 times the 2023 number, which would be a big deal. And it would be a reason to continue to buy a Tesla for sure. But it would certainly put the stock value right now at above, well, it'll put it easily back to all-time highs. Elon did what Elon did at the earnings call yesterday. And basically, I want to hear, I'm going to give you my analysis. I don't know if he does it on purpose or if it's just who he is. Okay. He shoots from the hip and from the heart and from his big brain. Okay. He has been reported to have very little empathy, and yet he talked about how much he loves us, the small shareholders. But I think that's how he is built. He just lays it out there. Yes, there could be more price cuts this year. There may not be. He can't predict. He wants to sell every unit possible the rest of the year. He's setting up for the future. Everything that's happening right now is about our future, your and my future. And so, no, he's not going to say absolutely no price cuts the rest of the year and then have to cut the prices. He's not going to say, yes, we're going to move more metal in the third quarter than we moved in the second quarter, when he knows he's going to be shutting down plants for big revamps. What do you think the big revamps are about? Oh, let's see. Those big revamps will be so they can make more cars per hour. They can make the cars less expensively so that they can maybe do the Highland. I'm assuming that's part of the deal. So he tells it like it is. We're going to only move the same amount of cars or create as many cars in the third quarter, or maybe a few fewer in the third quarter as we did in the second quarter. But guess what? That's setting up for the fourth quarter so that they can sell even more in the fourth quarter than we're probably anticipating. I'll do my analysis and I will put up the details. I'm thinking it'll be Saturday. It could move till Monday. I mean, I've got to, I want to make sure that I put the right amount of my own creative thinking into what's going to happen. But I'll be telling you about what my numbers are in the next couple of days. All right. So that's what I think Elon's doing. I think Elon does what Elon has to do, and that is be honest. And he's just going to say it like it is. And that has worked. Yes, it causes the market to go down, and sometimes badly, like today, on the day after the earnings report, but then it always goes back up to new highs after the earnings report. Takes usually a few days to a couple of weeks. You'll see it's going to happen again. This time, I'll tell you later, I think it's maybe only going to go back to the 300 level, but we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, the NASDAQ is down almost 1% this morning in the pre-market. Tesla is down a little bit over 4%. Last time I looked, it was still going down further to 4.5%. But this is not that far off the normal delta for Tesla versus the NASDAQ. So, yes, it's a blow off. Yes, people were disappointed. I think their main disappointment was not even the idea that the production numbers were only going to be the same in the third quarter as the second quarter, or maybe a few less. I think the big disappointment was there was no specificity with regard to anything positive. There was no, this is when we're going to have the handover for the Cybertruck. This is when we're going to have the third quarter, the AI Day 3. No pictures of Highland. There was no specificity. I think that's the main reason it's down. Plus, of course, Elon's kind of somber, sober analysis. All right. We are going to see a recovery from these numbers later today, both in the NASDAQ and Tesla. That's my thinking. But I think Tesla will end down today, down tomorrow. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, bond yields are up strongly this morning. I think that is a capitulation that there has been no news, no reporting, nothing from the Fed that would suggest they're not going to make their 25 basis point increase next week. So I think that is the bond market now kind of responding to that. However, it's still trading right in the middle of its recent range. So I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. There are more calls this morning. I saw another couple of headlines saying the Fed needs to stop. They need to not do it. It's going to cause a recession, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it's going to cause a recession. I think consumers and businesses have this next 25% built into their, that 25 basis points is not going to keep anybody from buying a house, and it's not going to keep anybody from buying a car. Okay. Yes, there'll be marginal players that will not be able to because they won't qualify, but it's really de minimis. It really doesn't matter. So everybody's looking past that now, but the NASDAQ is reacting probably a little bit to those bond increases. The NASDAQ might be reacting a little bit to the Russian news, where the Russians are bombing the heck out of the port, where the grains get shipped out from the Ukraine. And so, the grain market is higher this morning, and the NASDAQ might be reacting to that as well. We hate uncertainty, and that is certainly a piece of uncertainty right there that everybody should be paying attention to. I think the rebalance is still absolutely in the NASDAQ numbers. I looked this morning. We'll look again before we end here, but the big seven, the majestic seven, whatever they're calling it, are continuing to be traded differently than you would expect, and I think it's all about that. And I think that's having an impact on Tesla as well. Again, the big news, of course, is the earnings report. The regional banks are doing just fine in the earnings this week. The big banks are doing just fine in the earnings. In fact, everybody except Netflix is doing just fine in the earnings this week. And most of the guidance seems no more, at least as exciting as Elon's guidance. And in many cases, much better than Elon's guidance. So we're seeing most of the people that are reporting, their stocks are up, are slightly down, even when they've had beats. Like American Airlines had a beat and the stock still went down. Again, I think we're seeing a lot of rebalancing taking place, and we'll see what happens on Monday. I think by Monday, all that'll be cleared up. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we'll begin to see what the market looks like after the rebalancing. I continue to think that the economy is about in the best shape it's been for the last 3 years. I think everything is smoothing out. All the booms and busts and everything else, they're smoothing out. Things are getting back to normal. Inflation continues down. True inflation this morning is down another tick. It is just down like this. I think that inflation. I think the deflation is a bigger risk at this point. So therefore, I think there's a very, very strong chance that the Fed will have to lower interest rates before the end of the year or right after the beginning of next year in order not to go back into negative territory or go into negative territory, because the Fed wants inflation at 2%. They don't even want it at 1.5%. They don't want it at 1. They don't want it at 3. They want it at exactly 2. It makes no sense to me, but that's their goal. That's what they're shooting for. So if they see it starting to shoot below 2, towards 1, towards negative territory, they'll have no choice but to start pulling levers that are going to create inflation to be pumped back up towards that 2, just like they were doing 2 years ago. All right. So the economy looks to me to be poised for a really, really good 2024. The biggest question I have is, where's the labor going to come from? Where in the world is the labor going to come from? We're not going to see labor. We're not going to see layoffs the rest of this year. We're not going to, I mean, yeah, could it go to 3.6 or 3.7? Of course, but we're talking about full employment going into a year when the business, at least the second half of next year, or even by the second quarter, business is going to be picking up towards a 3% level, 3% increased GDP. And I don't know where we're going to find the labor to sustain that. And that could start a round of real inflation, normal inflation, but we won't be looking at it until 2025. And the Fed's action today are not going to stop that in 2025. All right. So please note that my estimate on Tesla's savings in cost of goods sold was exactly right on. I said it would be similar to the amount that they're getting from the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act tax benefit, which is between 150 and 250 million per quarter. Zach confirmed that the savings in terms of commodities was about identical, which is what I said. I said, I'll just take the middle number, 200 million on each. So that was exactly where I called it. I think we also saw a higher than predicted ASP, which is what I said would happen, because as people are able to buy the car less expensively, they're able to buy better trims. And so I also said we would see a higher ASP, and that was dramatically higher than anybody was expecting in terms of total auto revenue, given that we knew already what the number of cars involved were. So this all means that Tesla is perfectly poised to take advantage of the better auto market that's coming in 2024. Will that be? I mean, I think it'll be slightly better. Everybody's talking about the auto business being slightly better in the second half this year. I think it'll get better in 2024 as the aging fleet takes its toll and people have to buy cars. Somebody said this morning, though, why would anybody buy anything but a Tesla this year when the charging method is going to all be switching over to the Tesla method? And if you buy a car this year from Ford or General Motors or Audi or, go down the list, Hyundai, it's all going to have the wrong charging setup on the car. So that's kind of a rough idea right now to be thinking about. Anyway, Tesla is going to move. They're going to change their prices up or down based on what's happening in the market. Count on that. And they're going to do it as precisely as anybody can possibly do it. That's all there is. That's all we can say about that. So I'm a buyer at these levels. Leaps, of course. This is not investment advice. Let me one more thing before we talk about my thoughts about Tesla over the next couple of days. Let's talk about Optimus for a second. That was the biggest news by far. Everybody else's biggest news is that Tesla's in talks about FSD. Well, that's talks. They don't have a deal. They have talks. Yes, it opens up the door to everybody else now. That was a salesman signal saying to the entire world, we've got one guy that's coming in and talking to us about FSD that recognizes that this is going to be the standard. You better get on the phone. That's what that was, okay? And it was absolutely purposeful. It was planned. It was designed for that purpose. However, they don't have any deals on that yet. What they do have is they have Optimus ready to go into production. They have a timeline and they are putting it into production. Okay. They're hiring the people to put it into production. Let that sink in. We're not talking about 2029 or 2028 or 27 or 26. We're talking about 2024. They will be producing the bots. Please watch the video later this morning with Scott, where we'll talk about everything that was said and wasn't said and how Scott sees it. You do not want to miss this. It is by far the biggest thing that's happening at Tesla. I believe it's right up with FSD in terms of where Elon's brain is right now. Watch the video. All right, so let's go back to what I'm thinking is going on with Tesla over the next few days. This is not investment advice. I believe we will trade in a range of 265 to 300. I don't think we'll dip below 265, may not even touch 265. I don't think we'll go above 300. In fact, we probably won't even touch 300 for the next week or longer. But we will be moving back to 300, close to 300 in the 290s, whatever, by the end of next week. And at some point, we will get that announcement about the handover on the Cybertruck. When that happens, the stock will break through 300 and we will start going towards 350. There are other things, other announcements that could happen. Highland reveals, tons of things. There's a whole list of things. I've given you these things before. And any one of those things could cause the stock to break through 300 and keep going. And of course, a market change. A change in the market attitude, a continuation of the money coming off the sidelines. If the NASDAQ does bust loose next week, and then the NASDAQ starts going crazy after the reset, even that could be all that's necessary. I'm not predicting that, but I do think that could happen with the second leg potentially coming up soon. All right, let's pick up. I'm still predicting an all-time high in January after earnings. I'm still predicting 700 by year end of 2024. But that doesn't count Optimus or FSD. So Optimus or FSD could blow up that 700 number to much, much higher numbers by the end of next year. Okay, let's look at my phone and see where things are right now. We have the NASDAQ still down 75 and falling. We've got Apple barely up. We've got Amazon down. We've got Google barely up. We've got all of the Kathy Wood stocks down. We've got Tesla down 15 at this point. So it is down at the lowest point, 276. Still have 10 points to go before I would consider it to be a bounce. I wish I had that money right now so I could be ready to plug it in. Okay, and then what we have also is let me just check the bonds real quick to see if it's gotten any worse. We've got crypto up a little bit. We've got the dollar still steady. We've got gold down, but gold has been pretty strong recently. I don't 100% get that. Oil is up a little bit, but right in the middle of the trading range. And bonds continue to be up strongly this morning, which I'm sure, as I mentioned, is impacting the overall NASDAQ. So reminder once again, later today, well, all weekend, I've got one amazing guest after another talking about the earnings, but also talking about the future. We're not going to just look at the past. No, we're going to be talking about the future in terms of the things that were said at the earnings call, but that we also are beginning to realize new things. This is where we break brand new stuff. I've always been a pioneer my entire life. I've always been thinking out ahead. I'm not bragging. That's just the way my brain works. I can't help it. What can I do? Sometimes it hurts me. Believe me, when you're a pioneer, you can get crucified by your mistakes. And guess what? I'll make some. Don't count on my continuing to be as accurate as I've been the last few weeks. All right. So check all that stuff. So you want to hit like. If you haven't already hit like, please hit like. If you haven't already bought the books, buy the books. By the way, all of a sudden, making money out of thin air, the numbers are going up all week. I suppose it has something to do with Jeff Lutz saying the other day that he was going to buy one. I don't know. Maybe that wasn't it. Making money out of thin air. If you're not an owner and you're not a manager, and so you don't need to be able to read P&Ls as an owner needs to read them. And if you're an owner, you really need to know how to read your P&L and your balance sheet. You need to be able to use it to make money. But even if you're not an owner, even if you're just an investor and you really want to understand stocks, then understanding how to read their P&L is huge. And you can get that out of making money out of thin air. And I think it's $2.99 or something on Kindle. Anyway, all the books are available. You want to buy them. You want to join Patreon, please join Patreon. We're trying to get to 100 by the end of the month. You could help me with that. Okay, I think that's all I got for you today. Oh, and after you buy the book, you might end up hiring Shayla. She's my CPA. She has a CPA, an MBA, a CMA certificate. She's got manufacturing experience, and now she has her own company. You definitely want to think about hiring Shayla to be your CPA. All right, that's it. I am fully done now. It has been great talking to you.